Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast.
We get this question a lot. We this time of year, first 3-4 months, we meet with a lot of people that are thinking of making a move. And one of their questions that comes up very, very regularly across property types is, what should I do to improve the value of my home? And they're talking about renos. A lot of people are willing to invest a little bit of money into their property to try to maximize value. But is that always the best idea?
It depends, Denny. It depends. But we're talking in April, and if we're having these meetings with sellers today, is it worth renovating my home to improve the appeal to sell this year?
Yeah.
The thing that comes to mind is in a lot of cases, if it delays the listing, the answer may be no.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain renos that are high value, low time, items that have a good return.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to it depends. But I think because we're having this conversation a lot, or we've had a lot over the last few months, I know a lot of our answers are, declutter, landscape, paint, easy things that have a big impact on an impression that don't take too much time. But the moment you start talking about updating a kitchen or a bathroom and it involves multiple trades and a timeline and getting a contractor, first, good luck finding a contractor that's available. And if you do, good luck with that contractor that is available in a time where they're all busy.
Yeah.
But essentially, there might be a few exceptions, but unless your strength is construction, if you're in IT and you don't know a thing about renovating a bathroom, the thought is leave it for the buyer. Right now, the market is good. Do high impact items that are low involvement that will have the best that'll impact the impression the most.
Yeah.
And don't delay your listing. Because if you had a listing available last February, I think you'd be feeling pretty good about the outcome. And if you were delaying that listing and then you listed it right now, we have a few examples of listings that have got less interest today than they did 30, 60 days ago. So I think timing's arguably, in most circumstances, more important.
Yeah. It's difficult to give a general statement on this stuff because it's pretty dependent on someone's situation. What transition are they looking to move? Are they looking to upsize? Are they looking to downsize? What does their timeline look like? A few general questions that we always kind of go through, though, are we talk about timing. And I'm thinking, if you're thinking of redoing the kitchen, that today, Carl, tell me if I'm wrong, but I would say on the low end, to find a contractor to do that would be 3 to 6 months. So that puts you out of the spring market. That's putting you into August, September, October. What are those 3 months going to look like? No idea. And let's say you spend $50,000 on a kitchen and a bathroom in your condo. If the market is flooded with listings, if there's way more inventory in the summer, if there's a slow period like often happens in August, September, or late July and August, you could be breaking even or losing money on that reno based on sale price today. So what Jamie's first comment was, timing is more important in real estate than how well a unit shows or how well a property shows. And the timing may be better early in the year, but depends so much on that transition of what you're looking to do.
Yeah, if we were having this talk in November, the thought would be, make your home as presentable as possible so that it looks great next spring.
Yeah.
You have 6 months or whatever it is to get the work done.
Yeah.
That's a different story than having the chat in April.
Yeah.
When May and June are next, and those are great months to sell.
Yeah.
I blindly say May and June are my favorite months to sell because when you don't know the future, those have had the best track record, I would say.
I would also say that in a lot of circumstances, consumers assume that renovations are much less expensive than they actually are. Like a lot of times in a condo, people think they can do a kitchen, floors, paint, 2 bathrooms for $40,000, and it's just not the case if you're hiring a good contractor. If you're doing a lot of the work and demo, and you're laying floors yourself and you're painting yourself, that would be a pretty tight budget even. But if you're hiring someone to do that, that might be double that cost. And I think a lot of people going into renos think they can do a full kitchen for $10,000 to $12,000, and it's just not realistic.
Yeah, it would not be a pretty kitchen.
No.
That would not be a pretty kitchen. Yeah, and just in general, condos in a lot of circumstances don't get a great return on renos. You know, there are exceptions, but like a lot of times, well, if you're renovating a 20-year-old condo, for example, you're turning something that looks decent into something that looks nice. And when the starting point is decent, it's hard to get more than a 1-to-1 return on what you invest. You know, if they're looking at unit 1804 with this gorgeous kitchen and bathroom, and it's 50 grand more than unit 1704, that's original condition, a lot of buyers for condos are price sensitive. But the areas that do get the best return are where the values are highest. So if we're talking about Kitsilano, downtown Vancouver, any like heritage building on the west end of Vancouver, for example, I think those are exceptions where you may get the best return on your renos. But if we're talking about a suburb condo, it's a lot of work for little reward. And unless that's your strength is construction, if you're doing it, do it for yourself. Don't necessarily, in a lot of cases, do it on the anticipation that you're making money off of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of circumstances where people do big renos. There's one in Port Moody. This is a bad example, but it's a great example for this podcast. He did a very high-end reno on a 1,200 square foot condo in a great building with a great view. That product already is desirable. But spending an extra $200,000 on a condo reno just doesn't make any sense for that type of suburb product, right? Like you may, I'd say on the high end, probably get $100K more than an original unit in that building. That building was 2013. So it's not like this is a 80s building that is like old green carpets and like a blue or purple toilet and bathtub. Like it's a product that is developer grade with granite counters and like standard cabinets. But overspending on condos happens more than you would think, and you just don't get the return on that kind of stuff. So that one was a tough one. But
just to touch on that, I mean, I think a great thing for a lot of people to do is just get inspiration on reno from showrooms that developers put up. You know, showrooms are, developers hire designers. Developers are budget conscious. They create arguably the nicest space for the lowest dollar that they can for economically. So I think like showrooms are a good way to get inspiration on not overspending, but also getting a real nice product. Yeah. But as you mentioned, I mean, oftentimes we run into people that really overspend. Like they choose a tile that might be really flashy, $30 a foot, but it's kind of gaudy. It makes it look a little bit, you know, it's not as nice to everybody, but it's the most expensive, flashy metallic or glass tile that you could find. And then the other example is, you know, whether it's flooring that's, you know, keep your flooring under $10 a foot if you're in a condo in a lot of cases. You know, don't go ridiculously overboard. Tile, like you can go very expensive on showers, and you can get these steam showers that are just have stuff squirting out every direction and whatnot. and it's hard to get a full return on that. You know, there are exceptions, of course, but those come to mind as top overexpended items.
If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you probably saw me cringe a few times when Jamie mentioned those things. This specific one, I remember it so clearly because it sucks. When you go in and someone is so excited about their reno and you tell them that the return on the reno is going to be half or less of what they spent. Jamie, hold your pen.
Sorry. I just thought of lighting, Denny. I forgot to mention lighting.
Okay, so here's my three examples from this one reno. Was he spent $16 a square foot on floors. He spent $40 a square foot on a tile in a bathroom.
Yeah.
And then he had like some really elaborate, let's say, light fixtures. Man, I can't remember the exact number, but he probably spent like $5,000 on 3 chandeliers. Like it was just too much money for a standard suburb
more
condo.
Lighting isn't always better. You know,
Totally.
Sometimes you see 30 pot lights where there could be 6.
Yeah.
Or they have that string rope light that creates makes your place look like a nightclub. You know, I think lighting is less is more, and some, you know, tastefully done. But you don't expect everyone to want to be in a very cold, stark, luxury-inspired nightclub. You know, people want a nice, warm place to live.
There are some less expensive ways to really improve that first impression and get a bit of a return on a reno. If you're looking to maximize a condo sale this year, though, again, getting a contractor to do it may be the challenge, but things that are a little bit less labor intensive, floors and paint, like you can do a lot of that yourself, or get a flooring guy from Home Depot or one of the flooring companies to do the install, which would be a lot less or a lot quicker of a turnaround. But those two things can really change that first impression. And I don't know what the approximate return on like a standard, let's say New Est Coquitlam condo would be. Let's say it's a late 90s condo, redoing the floors and paint might be close to a 2-to-1 return. I would agree with that. I mean, I did, I used to have a condo at News, 814 Royal Ave, downtown New West. And I remember when I sold that, I did the floors and paint. It was under $5,000. And I would imagine that it made 10. I mean, 5,000, I'd say would be on the lower end for, that was a 800 square foot 2-bedroom condo. But floors and paint, 5,000 to 10,000 in a lot of cases has a high impact. It's just, would you delay a listing for it? And that's, I would delay a listing a few weeks for it, but I don't think I'd delay a listing a few months for it. No, yeah. I mean, I think if we are getting anything across in this podcast, the timing of a listing is the most important aspect. And,
appliances are a hard item to get more than a 1-to-1 return on. And if you are going to choose appliances, it's, really important to be brand conscious and if there's some appliance listeners here, I'm going to get butchered on this. But an example might be like, I look at, say, KitchenAid. KitchenAid's a brand that is conceived as like, maybe it's like a mid-tier brand, but it's arguably a lower tier, high-end brand. Like their high-end line is very economical, but it's like, it looks good. Most people won't be offended by KitchenAid appliances. They look great and they're budget conscious.
Yeah.
If you went with Viking, you're overspending. If you went with like Samsung and you had a fridge that had a screen on it, you might be missing the mark on style that the buyer's looking for. So it's just, recognizing that if you don't care about appliances, your buyer might. So spending a little bit of time on finding which brands are that right neutral spot. And I'm just using KitchenAid as an example because I think it's one of the few, but there are others out there as well. Yeah.
I like it.
All right. So don't delay your listing for a bathroom reno. Don't go too expensive on tile and flooring. In a lot of cases, you can do a fiberglass insert at a shower base instead of a tile base, save a few bucks. But it's case by case. Check with your local realtor. And if you're having this conversation in fall, we're more likely to say, yes, do it. If you're having this conversation early spring, we're more likely to say the market is good now.